Something about red apple
Try
cigarettes.
red apple cigarettes. They taste better, and they don't hurt your... What was it? Line.
Yeah.
Line.
Give me the line! God! God! Embarrass yourself like that in front of all those goddamn people!
So we just saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is Quentin Tarantino's latest movie, and it's an interesting one. I feel like this movie, funny enough, is very Tarantino, and also at the same time like a different Tarantino, the Twilight Tarantino.
Yeah, it's Tarantino essentially being a sad boy.
Yeah,
yeah,
it really is.
Kind of.
So we each had kind of a positive, but also a negative that tied into it. So we're each going to kind of take our turns with our parts of the take in this movie, and then we'll give you a score at the end. So Ransom, what was your positive, and then that negative that kind of followed up from it?
My positive here is Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio acting together really is just what you wanted. The relationship throughout the movie as like kind of like this brotherly love is really, really awesome. Yeah, and it really keeps you going throughout the movie is them and their back and forth. But that also isn't the reason of this movie. There are a lot of different points just kind of shoehorned in throughout. You know, you go from different acts, and each one will kind of have different messages, and you start with one, and then when it goes on to another, there's really no point. It's like pitching a tent. You put in the stake to the ground, and then you go to the next one, but you forgot to nail in the other stake.
It's a bit of a problem. And like you're right, like there are two very important themes to this movie. One dealing with like coming in from a younger person to an older person and not realizing you may not be wanted anymore.
It's official, old buddy. Well, it has been.
And there's a little bit of a message of like, murder is happening in these movies, and that affects the children being raised up, you know?
It was funny for Quentin Tarantino to make a joke about how violence as, like, seeing violence as kids, quote unquote, makes people think that they're justified to do like, violent acts.
And then right after that, you go into the Tarantino moment of the film, where it's just blood and whatnot.
Yeah, so... positive for me, right?
Yeah.
I really liked Rick Dalton's character, in particular around the, I would say, kind of like the middle-ish part of the second act. There's a moment where he's on a new set, a Western set, as he's trying to do this like kind of like small-time role, but also portrayed as quote-unquote the heavy, right? He's the antagonist, but it's integral to make the rest of the show work. And like it comes off really, really endearing because he struggles with it at first, but then there's a moment of perseverance and it kind of gets rewarded in a very sweet and heartening way. There's this child that he interacts with, and I feel like Quentin Tarantino used that as like the juxtaposition where it's like a really smart kid telling you that you're doing a really good job, and the youth kind of reminding you that, hey, you inspired me.
Yeah.
That's a good message, and that makes you feel really nice. And those moments with Rick Dalton and, Leo DiCaprio were great.
Yeah.
But also, the movie hangs on to this nostalgia for old-time Hollywood so much.
Yeah.
There's an hour and a half of this movie that's just them, like, having a slice of life out of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And, like, I feel like all the guys and girls in LA are going to be like, great. And no wonder why so many people at the festivals were like, yeah, it's great. Because they love that shit. Yeah. They love that shit. And it's an hour and a half of that shit. And if you aren't necessarily living in LA or don't necessarily have all of those connections, you can understand why they're there, but you can also be like, maybe I didn't need all that in my face all the time.
Yeah.
Like, it's slow.
Yeah.
Especially for a Tarantino movie.
Yeah, like, you thought Hateful Eight was slow.
No.
This gets to a point where it, like, transitions, like, has a good space between time, and it does, like, 6 months later, and then you're like, how much left of this movie is there? You're like, what?
Seriously, yeah. You're just kind of struggle bussing around until, again, like we said, the big Tarantino moment happens. And is it great?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Were we
yeah.
all laughing? Yes.
Yeah.
But it took a long time to
It
get
took
to
a
that.
long time, yeah.
Yeah. So, when you come back from this movie, taking in the pros, the cons, the Tarantino you love, the Tarantino you can kind of just be like, where do you come down to this? Because I feel like we had different scores that we were muddling around with, and I'm feeling concrete with mine.
Yeah, I thought about it, and I actually thought of a comparison movie to it, and then I was like, oh yeah, this is a 7.
Hot take?
This is an adult version of Toy Story. It really
Not
is.
as fun and not as great.
Yeah, this is an adult version of Toy Story, essentially. So
They're with like way more nihilism.
yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. And I feel like when it comes down to brass tacks, because of what you just said, 7.
It's a 7.
It's a 7. Like it's that movie that you watched, and out of all the Tarantino films, it's not in the good to like excellent. It's just merely like okay, like it's a film,
Yeah.
and like the things that you really enjoyed about it, you walk away with it and you love them. But it doesn't have those engaging aspects like other Tarantino movies that do.
Yeah. Do you understand why he made this film? Yeah, I definitely do.
Very much so.
But did I necessarily need it? No.
Yeah.
But I do say that it's worth seeing for Brad Pitt and Leo, but I wouldn't say run out to go see.
Yeah, I feel like this is a movie that if you catch it a year from now, you're fine. Don't run
Yeah.
out to see this movie.
Yeah.
It's not one of... Go watch... If you haven't seen Tarantino movies, I would recommend you any of them other than this one.
Yeah.
And that's not saying that this is terrible. It's just not anywhere near as engaging or engrossing as those other movies.
Yeah.
Definitely an interesting time at the movie theaters, and I feel like, hey, there's other movies you can go be watching right now, especially Midsommar, and a movie that hopefully we'll get next week in Colorado, Farewell.
Yes. As well as Art of Self-Defense.
Shit.
Line.
So for all of those movies and more, stay tuned here and watch what's worthy.
See ya.
See ya.